I'm just going to ask you a few questions. If you don't hear me or the video or audio cuts out, please let me know and I'll repeat the question again. Um, I s You're currently employed with the Converse Police Department, is that correct, sir?
Yes, sir, I am.
Okay. And were you employed with the same police department back on January 31st, 2021?
Yes, sir, I was.
And what's your position with the police department?
I am a K-9 officer. Technically, I'm in the patrol division right now.
And were you in the same position back on January 31st, 2021?
Yes, sir, I was.
Okay. All right. On that particular day, January 31st, 2021, when did you start your shift?
I believe I was still coming in at 5 during that time, 5 p.m., 1700 hours.
Okay. And when does your shift end, typically at that time, if you remember?
It ends at 2 a.m.
Okay.
My shift may have been changed somewhere in that area, to be honest, and I cannot remember because I was coming in at 2, and I think that was during that time period. I got moved to 5 p.m. a little later, I believe.
Okay. All right. And when you start your shift, do you report to the, I guess, the Commerce City Police Department on 402 South Seguin Street?
Yes, sir, I do.
Okay. And so that's where your patrol vehicle is based out of and where you check in to start your shift?
No, sir, I have a take-home vehicle because I have a police cane.
Okay. All right. And so you take your vehicle home. So how do you check in to start your shift then for that particular day?
We have a time clock manager that is set up at the front of the PD, and if my shift supervisor doesn't clock me in, then I clock in there. But he usually clocks me whatever time I get there.
Okay. Is this something that's done remotely, or you still have to drive to the police station and check in?
So it can be not remotely. If I don't go straight to the police department, then my supervisor can clock me in on his computer. But most of the time I go to the police department first because I need to get my gear for the day.
Okay. And on January 31st, did you have an assigned area you were supposed to patrol?
So being canine, I have shift partners that all take districts. And then I'm kind of free roaming to be able to do either narcotics interdiction or some type of apprehensions and stuff like that. So most of the time we're assigned to either do warrants or narcotics interdiction. So traffic stops trying to get illicit narcotics off of the street.
Okay. And so if you're going to be doing warrants on that particular day, how do they give you a list for the warrants?
So we do get a list electronically that is emailed from one of our, I don't think it's the court clerks. I think it's one of our, like the secretary ladies that are up front. And it's on about a weekly basis that we get the warrant list.
Okay. So I don't even know. January 31st was,
I have the one pulled up from that week, sir.
Okay. So January 31st was a Sunday, is that right?
That I don't know.
Okay.
But
so when do you get the warrant list? Is it on a Monday or?
So this one, I don't think it's a specific day because depending on, because they only work Monday through Friday. But
Okay.
this one, I did receive, the timestamp says 01/29/2021. So 2 days prior to the arrest.
And this list is electronic, or is it a hard copy that you get?
It's electronic through the platform Excel.
So on January 31st, when did you take a look at that list?
That I couldn't tell you specifically. I want to say it was after roll call because Mr. Olagashin was brought up in that day's roll call in which the warrants were mentioned. So I believe what happened was I looked at the list afterwards because I saw that it had been 2 days prior. And I would do a query on whoever I'm going to be going to serve a warrant on to make sure that they hadn't been confirmed on prior to me attempting it.
And who was the officer that did the roll call that advised, I guess, the entire shift of?
have to be. So I have two supervisors on my shift. It would have had to have been either Corporal Schrager, whose badge number is 426, or Sergeant Radziski, whose badge number is 434.
All right. Okay. Now, prior to your interaction on January 31st, had you had previously made contact with Mr. Olegeshin sometime in January of 2021?
In January specifically, I wouldn't be able to tell you, but we do go to Mr. Olegeshin's residence pretty frequently due to him and his wife calling 9.
All right. And so you don't recall
So
having any contact with him on January 9th, 2021?
Say the question again. I think I was talking at the same time.
I'm so sorry. So you don't recall if you had some interaction with him back on January 9th, 2021?
It's very well possible. If you have any details on the situation, you might be able to refresh my memory.
Okay. All right. So on January 31st, did you go by his house to try and execute a warrant?
So I remember specifically on that day, I was waiting for him to leave his residence because I had driven by to see if he was at his residence. And I remember the first time I drove by, he was in the parking lot with his child. And I didn't want to attempt to execute a warrant while he was holding a child because of Mr. Olegeshin's demeanor normally whenever we encounter him. So I didn't want the potential for something to happen to his child. So what I did was I parked at the end of the block on Arbor Miss, and I waited there on the curb behind a truck.
Okay. And the vehicle you were in, was it a marked vehicle?
So it is marked, but it's marked with subdued markings. So it's a white vehicle that has white reflective markings on it that say Converse Police Department and Caution K9, things of those matter. And then I believe it also has our police patch on it.
Okay. And it's a slick top, right? You don't have anything up on top since it's subdued marked?
Yes, they're interior lights.
All right. I'm sorry. So interior lights.
Yes, sir.
All right. Did you have anybody helping you or in the car with you when you were waiting to try and make contact with Mr. Olegeshin?
Just my police canine, but I had talked with my shift earlier during the day, so they were aware that I was going to be in the area attempting to serve the warrant.
So when did you make contact with Mr. Olegeshin?
Well, he actually made contact with me while I was waiting on the curb. He backed about, sorry, he wasn't driving. His wife was driving. He backed about halfway out of his driveway and then exited the vehicle and actually approached me in my patrol vehicle. And I believe that is notated in the second paragraph of my report.
And so when he made contact with you, were you still inside your car?
When he began walking towards me, I was still in my patrol vehicle. I believe it was at about the time that he made it to the intersection of Arbor Miss and Steve's and stopped. When that was when he was throwing his hands up in a questioning manner, and I could tell he was shouting something. That's when I exited my vehicle.
Okay. All right. So now you've exited your vehicle. How far away are you from Mr. Olegeshin?
I'd say anywhere between 50 and 100 feet.
Okay. Are there any vehicles or obstructions in the way between you and Mr. Olegeshin?
No, there was not. And I believe he was standing in the middle of the road.
Okay. Did you happen to have a body cam active at the time?
That y'all did not receive my body cam footage, but I actually reviewed it approximately 3 days ago now. So it does exist. I don't know why y'all didn't receive it.
Okay. Now the reason I'm asking is because we didn't receive any body cam or other vehicle Coban video. So you think that there is at least a body cam video that we can look at?
I know that there is, sir, because I reviewed it myself. There is not dash cam because I didn't activate my lights.
Okay.
But there is body cam footage. I know that for sure.
Okay. And you've already turned that over to the DA's office?
Say it again, sir.
And you have already made arrangements to turn the video over to the DA's office?
I made our criminal investigation division aware that y'all did not receive it. I'm not sure what the process is to be able to get that to y'all, but I can touch on today.
So you're now about 50 to 100 feet away from Mr. Olegeshin. Does he turn away at this point to go back to his home?
No, shouting something. I think I put it in the. Yeah, I made notes here. Sorry. He asked me twice why we were watching his house, and I told him that I could not hear him, and I continued walking towards him.
Okay.
Don't, not right now. Go over there. Sorry. Okay. So I began walking towards him. It was while I was walking towards him that he turned from me, and I told him to stop, that I needed to talk to him, and he continued walking.
Okay. So he turns, so he's back facing when you're telling him to stop?
Yes, sir.
Okay. How far away were you at this point when you're trying to tell him to stop? You know the distance?
No, I cannot remember, sir.
Okay. Do you know if you had to yell or shout to stop?
It'd probably be in between. It definitely wasn't shouting, but it wasn't just normal talking.
Okay. And based on your observations of Mr. Olegeshin, he continued to walk towards his home, right?
Right. And then that's when I began.
Okay. And so was he, in terms of his walking, was it just the same regular walk even after you shouted, or was he running away from you?
He didn't begin running until he looked back and saw that I was running. And then he was instructed to stop running, and he continued.
Okay. So he was just walking away, and then at some point you say he looks back and sees you running at him, and then
yes.
He's running.
And he kept running. Yes, sir.
Did you have your service revolver drawn?
We have Glock 22 pistols. They're a semi-automatic pistol, but I did not have it drawn. No, sir.
Okay. Did you have your taser drawn?
No, sir. He did not present any type of threat. He was just running away from me, so I did not have either of those. And a taser would not have been effective because he was wearing a really baggy jacket.
Okay. And your service animal was still in the vehicle, right? You didn't have your dog trying to assist?
No, sir. He was not deployed at all.
Okay. So how far was Mr. Olegeshin from his home in terms of distance, if you know, when he was trying to get back into it?
At least a block. We ran a fair distance.
How did you catch up to Mr. Olegeshin?
I caught up to him whenever he tried to enter his residence. He wasn't able to get the door open in time.
Okay. So you're behind him.
Mm-hmm.
And you're saying there's a fair amount of distance between the two of you because you didn't catch up to him until you actually got to his home. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And you don't recall what the distance is, though. Is that also correct?
That is correct, sir.
Okay. So he's at the door. And so what do you do when you come up to the door where he's at?
I believe I grabbed him by his shoulders and then put him against the wall that was directly to the right of his door. And then I had actually seen at the time what I thought was just a regular citizen, but it was actually an off-duty Great Forest police officer who came and assisted me in arresting Mr. Olegeshin. He was passively resisting at the time. He was pulling his arms in front of him while we were trying to pull him to the back and get him handcuffed.
Okay. And this off-duty police officer, as I've come to find out, is an Officer Bush.
Excuse me, Mr. Vale. I couldn't hear that.
Okay. I'm sorry. And am I correct in saying that off-duty Great Forest police officer was an Officer Bush, badge number 441?
Yeah.
Okay.
No.
I didn't hear it. Was it Gray Forest police officer was an officer what?
Officer Bush, badge number 441?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And so he was actually reversing in his truck while I was chasing Mr. Olegeshin down Arbor Mist to his residence. So he was up in line with us at Mr. Olegeshin's residence. That's when he exited the vehicle and assisted me in arresting him.
And when you were, I guess, running after Mr. Olegeshin, how were you trying to make him aware that you were trying to stop him?
Specifically to stop running.
And when you're going after Mr. Olegeshin, between the time you start running after him and he gets to his home, was there any vehicles or any other things that got in the way between the two of you?
So there was the guy who gave us to.
Excuse me. Your sound is cutting out, and I'm not getting it. Seems to be a short. I didn't hear any of what you just said.
Can you repeat the answer, Officer Cooper? I mean, your audio was fading out.
Sorry, I thought she was talking to you. There was no vehicle. He ran mostly on the sidewalk. There was a portion where I thought he was run into his residence, but it was the wrong house, so I ended up having to run around a truck.
All right. And you don't recall having any kind of contact with Mr. Olegeshin back on January 9th, 2021, when you and several other Converse police officers responded to a traffic stop in front of Randolph Air Force Base?
Excuse me, I can't hear you.
And you don't, officer, I know you said this before, but I want to make sure I get this clear. You don't recall on January 9th, 2021, that you assisted several other Converse police officers and a Bexar County Sheriff deputy at a traffic stop involving Mr. Olegeshin near Randolph Air Force Base?
Right. Now that you provide details, I remember the incident. I didn't, again, we deal with Mr. Olegeshin pretty frequently, but I do remember that instance. Yes, sir.
Were you the officer that conducted the traffic stop, or was it one of the other officers?
No, I was assisting an officer that was attempting to make a traffic stop on Mr. Olegeshin while he was evading in his motor vehicle.
Okay. So you just arrived at the scene after the fact, is that correct?
Well, not after the fact. I was there partway through, because I think I remember calling out a portion of the pursuit.
Officer Cooper.
Yes, sir.
Can you maybe shift your chair one way or the other? Because it appears that something wrong with at this time with your sound system. It might be there's a spot there.
I think the mic's at the bottom. Give me 1 second, Your Honor. Does it sound better, Your Honor?
It seems pretty solid now.
Okay, yeah, I think it may have been
Continue
covered.
to respond.
I apologize.
No problem. Not needed. All right, continue, Mr. Vale.
Yes, sir.
And I interrupted you. I think you asked, was he the primary arresting officer?
Yes, sir. That was what it was. And Officer Cooper, you weren't the primary arresting officer back on that traffic stop. Is that right?
No, sir. I believe it was Officer Alexander, badge number 475.
And in terms of the execution of the warrant of Mr. Olegeshin, I mean, was the warrant, did it have a picture of him on there? I mean, how is it that you're able to identify that the warrant notice you got was the same person as Mr. Olegeshin who's here in the courtroom today?
Right. So the email that I explained to you that we receive electronically from the Excel document does not have a picture. It has his last name, first name, his date of birth, the date that it was issued, the offense that is in question or that he's being accused of, and then his address. And so, as well as his SID number through Bexar County, which is how a way that they track them. So like I said, I like to verify to make sure that the warrant still exists so that I can assure that he wasn't arrested within the last 2 days since it was issued. So what I did was I conducted a query on my my in-car computer, and that provides a picture through a Bexar County return that says that the warrants are active.
Judge, at this time, I guess I'm conditionally done with my questioning. My concern is that there's this body cam video that I need to take a look at in order to finish properly questioning Officer Cooper, because it goes to, again, whether or not Mr. Olegeshin was aware of the fact he was trying to execute warrants on him. I'm not sure what's the best way to handle that, Your Honor, but I'd like to be able to at least see that video when it becomes available, and if necessary, be able to recall Officer Cooper for testimony.
Officer Cooper, you are ordered to remain available for further examination. Mr. Vale appears to be finished with your examination at this time. Also, I order the state to obtain or find out why, if you're not able to, why the body cam footage is not or has not been produced or is available. Let's put it this way, produce it, okay?
Yes, sir. I will talk to our criminal investigation division and find out what we need to do to get that over to you guys.
All right, my order is more directed to the state prosecutors to get that. Since you're saying it exists, I'm ordering the state to obtain it, make it available to Mr. Vale.
We were told, I can confirm that it will be downloaded within the next 48 hours.
Very good. So just so there's no question, excuse me, the court orders that you produce it. I hear that it will be. I have no reason to doubt you, but the record will show that I have ordered it. All right. Now, Mr. Vale, any other questions for this witness?
No, sir, not at this time. Like I said, I really do want to take a look at the video, and I may have to ask
that's
for a
understandable.
recall.
That's understandable. Ms. Morgan.
Yes, Your Honor. Yes. Hi, Mr. Cooper, or Officer Cooper.
Yes, sir.
Prior to January 31st, 2021, had you seen a picture of Mr. Timoteo?
Prior to the 31st?
Correct.
I've seen them probably multiple times and also had direct interactions with him.
So on January 31st, when he was walking to your vehicle, did you know who he was?
100%. Mr. Olgashin also has a very peculiar way of talking. So.
Did he speak to you that day?
Yes, multiple times.
Okay, and you just had previously mentioned he was about 50 to 100 feet away from you, but could you comprehend what he was saying to you?
Yes, ma'am. He asked me twice while we were watching his house.
Okay. And,
it's also, sorry.
Oh, no, go ahead.
It comes over the body camera footage as well.
And you said that you were assigned to that area that day. Were you specifically going out to issue the warrant on Mr. Olagashin?
So I wasn't necessarily assigned to that area. Maybe there was a misinterpretation there. I'm kind of free roaming, so I can decide how I want to perform my duties, basically, depending on our workload. And so that day, whenever Mr. Olagashin's warrants were brought up at roll call, I made that my goal for the day.
When Mr. Olagashin came up to your vehicle, I think you may have mentioned he was suspicious. Can you explain what you meant by that?
So I put that I was approached by a suspicious person. And yes, just because of his demeanor, the way that he exited his vehicle and walked a block to make contact with me, and then was standing in the roadway throwing his hands up in the air, I do find that to be a little suspicious and not normal behavior.
And did Mr. Olagashin, did he make contact with you, or did you make contact with him first?
He made contact with me, ma'am.
And after he made contact with you, that's when you asked him who he was, or did you already know, you knew who he was, and that's when you asked him if you could speak with him?
Right. So I exited the vehicle because I could see that he was shouting something, and that's when he was asking why we were watching him. And I told him that I couldn't hear him because I couldn't hear him very well at the time. So I continued approaching him, and I did know that it was him. Yes.
Okay. And at that time, is that when you decided to execute the warrant?
Yes. Whenever I told him, he started walking away from me, and I told him that he needed to stop, that I had to talk to him. That was when I had decided that I was going to execute the warrant.
Jonah, that is all that we have from the state.
Redirect, if any, Mr. Vale.
No, Judge, I'll reserve until I can see the video.
All right, sir. Any, call your next witness, please.
That's it, Judge.
All right. Can Mr. Cooper be allowed to, I'd ordinarily say leave the courtroom, but in this case, you're at home or where are you?
Yes, sir. I'm at home. I start shift here in a little bit.
All right, well, any objection to allowing Mr. Officer Cooper to exit the proceedings?
No, Judge, just again, I would just ask that he be subject to recall once we get a little
He
more.
he is already ordered to be subject to recall. Ms. Morgan, anything?
No, Your Honor, I just want to reiterate the CCA court case Davies state that says it is inappropriate to consider the lawfulness of an officer's attempted arrest or detention as at a suppression issue in evading cases.
I understand what you're arguing. If there was an attempted arrest, it would be a question of whether there was in fact an attempted arrest or not. At this point, the evidence is clear, or it speaks for itself. All right. Anything else on this particular motion, Mr. Vail?
No, sir.
All right. I'm going to reserve any kind of judgment on this matter until you had the opportunity to further examine, if you choose, with having had access to the body cam materials that the officer has referred to. Next motion.
That's the other motion ties basically to the same motion to suppress, because it's our position that there wasn't a basis for bringing these charges to Mr. Legation that should be dismissed. And so again, I would just ask the court to I guess reserve its decision on that until we can get the video and see what we're going to do.
Okay, it's a separate motion.
It is a separate motion. Yes, sir.
Okay. And it is, the essence of that separate motion is just to dismiss. Is that what you're saying?
That's correct, Judge.
All right, then I'll have to reserve that too. Anything further?
Not on this matter at this time, Your Honor.
No more, no other motions.
No, sir.
All right, Mr. Olagishin, do you have any specific motions that the court is not aware of at this time?
I filed a special appearance, not necessarily. It's a motion and notice to the court. Whatever questions I have for Mr. Cooper would be reserved till we get a hold of the body cam that they refused intentionally to release. And I would also state for the record that the fact that the incident from January 9th, 2021 ties directly to this incident, because that was the incident that stemmed the alleged warrant. Officer Cooper was there, was present. He put me in his vehicle. He had his canine unit there. He stated, and I'm stating for the record, he said, I had my weapon pointed at your dome. I would ask that every body cam, the audio, video, the dash cam, and communication with 911 dispatch be released also, because I actually called 911 dispatch.
Your Honor, I don't believe that Mr. Olagashin has been sworn in.
Have you been sworn in?
Mr. Olagishin?
Yes, sir.
That's one of the reasons that I assigned an attorney to help you.
Roger.
I don't allow sidebar, meaning comments that are not specific to questions. Talk with Mr. Vail. He'll explain to you what I'm referring to.
No, I understand what you're referring to, Your Honor. I was just stating for the record that could you have this order put in that the video, the reports, the dash cam, and audio for the incident on January 9th, 2021 also be ordered release, along with the video, audio, reports, and dash cam from the incident on January 31st, 2021. Thanks.
The January 31st, 21, is this the basis of this whole arrest and charge?
Yes, sir. That stemmed from the incident on January 9th, 2021, which Cooper was also a party to. He put me in his vehicle, so he's lying. He doesn't remember.
Mr. Olagishin.
Yes, sir.
I'm going to tell you again, when you make the comment that he is lying, etc., don't do that. I don't allow that in the courtroom. I won't allow
Okay.
them to characterize you one way or the other. And I don't want you doing it with either Ms. Morgan, your own attorney, the court, or anybody else. You understand what I'm saying to you?
I understand that. And Your Honor, for the record, he did characterize me. When somebody makes a statement as suspicious and not normal behavior, that is characterization, Your Honor.
That is a description of his observations. There's a distinction. It's not a question of your personality or persona. There's a distinction. Talk to Mr. Vale. He might can make that clear to you. If not,
Understand
I
the
will
clarity.
make it clear to you by my orders. So I will not allow them to disrespect you. I will
Roger.
allow them to testify clearly. We understand each other.
Yes, sir.
All right. Thank you.
So, Your Honor, the question I
The-
asked, could
On the
you?
January 9th incident,
Yes, sir.
Mr. Vale,
Yes, sir.
would you confer with your client? And if you choose, file a motion for discovery in accordance with what he describes, if you, as an officer of the court, believe that it is relevant and necessary. I will, that will be my order to you. All
Okay,
right.
Judge.
Okay.
Anything else, Mr. Olagashin? And by the way, am I pronouncing that correctly? I've heard it referred to as Olagashin. I thought it was Olagashin.
The name is pronounced Olagashin.
Say again.
Olagashin.
Olagashin. All right. I will do my best.
So you had it right.
I will do my best to pronounce it correctly as a matter of respect. I think I owe you that. All right. Then if
Yes,
this
sir.
is all for this morning
Appreciate
or
that.
this afternoon, then I will conclude the hearing at this time. Thank you all.
All right.